Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer. That part number is LB4361-400-601. Here it is. Bommer's been in business since 1876, making hinges, basically. The spring hinge entire category they own. That's what they do. That's what they're known for. And if you've seen a Bommer hinge anywhere, it's probably their 3029 series double-acting spring hinge. It's what Bommer does. They're exceptional at it. They have extreme engineering that runs on these hinges to the point where I once asked the head engineer there how many cycles they had tested their hinge to, because a grade 1 hinge, of which this is a grade 1 hinge, goes to 1,000,000 cycles. It's been tested 1,000,000 times, and the response was, I don't know, I unplugged the machine at 7,000,000. So and that's a result of the extremely exceptional engineering and that spring that's inside of there. That's an item that they're very proud of and unique to Bommer. They never have problems with spring hinges, and when they do, meaning when someone calls and says their spring hinge doesn't work, and I've put my foot in that bear trap. I contacted Bommer one time about, a client says, yeah, the client says that the hinge spring breaks and it doesn't close the door, is what he said. And the response from Bommer was, are they surface mounting it? And they were. I didn't know that. They were surface mounting it and wanting the gate to close like this. They were surface mounting it. So the spring is being wound in the wrong direction. You would want to order technically a reverse spring for that, or you'll need to mortise mount them, is how you would. So the point of the matter is very, very unusual for a Bommer spring to break. So this is the LB4361. Let's dissect the part number. LB stands for Lube bearing. It is a 3-knuckle type construction of no maintenance bearing construction, barrel knuckle construction from Bommer. The 4361 means that this hinge is what it is, which is a confluence of everything dimensionally about it. So let's take a look. First of all, this is a residential leaf. It's probably about 96 thousandths thick. That's inferred in the part number. Spot on, 0.096. It also means that it is a full mortise hinge, that when you bring the leaves together, because of the swag on the hinge leaves, they're going to have a small gap when they're brought parallel, about 1/16 of an inch. That's standard for a full mortise hinge. It also means that this hinge has this unusual arrangement of 5/8 radius corner and 1/4 inch radius corner. It means the location of the screw holes are particular, and that is what makes this a 4361. All of that conspires to mean that. If you change that part number, you've got a different hinge. Now the 400 in the part number means two things. It just means the size. One thing, it's 4 inch tall and it's 4 inch wide. Okay, that's what this means. Bommer has a unique means of calling out their sizes as part numbers. The conventions that they use for sizing takes a little getting used to, but once you do, you've got it. 400, 450, 454, 508. You know, these are all hinge sizes. Now the 601, that means a couple of things. That means this hinge is made of steel. Okay, that also means that this is in what's called a bright black japanned. The process of japanned finishing on hardware goes to the 19th century, just that I'm aware of it. And when it comes to hardware, you could have easily have bought bright black Japan like this with that certain amount of gloss to it. And you could have also, once upon a time, 120 years ago, bought a dead black Japan that would have been a matte finish. So this is Bommer's black. It's the only black that they make. They don't do a powder coat. They don't do anything other than a japanned process. And that's what it looks like. A semi-glossy black finish. Black in the year 2020 has been popular for a couple of years and will probably be popular for about a decade or so, 12 years, something like that. That's the sort of sine wave of finish popularity that I see. Brass was really great from the early 80s to for about the 80s, and then you went to satin chrome and then satin nickel, and that phased into oil rub bronze at the turn of the century, and that was popular for a long time. Black has come in to be very popular. So this is a spring hinge. You're going to use this obviously to close doors behind you, whether you want it for the convenience or you need it for the obligations of the fire door that you're installing this onto. That might be the case. That information that's on there says listed. There is an image down below this video that we'll take a closer look at so you can see it a little bit closer. Let's switch to the screen view and take a closer look at that supporting information. Here is the hinge that we are looking at. Let's take a look at those photographs. Here's the box that it came out of. The contents, your hinge, your screws, your tension rod, and a tension pin. The hinge itself, standing up, on its, looking at the swag on the hinge leaf here. The back side. Screws, tension rod, tension pin. For every order you'll place, you'll get one tension rod. For every hinge you order, you'll get one tension pin. Additional photos, a close-up of the logo, and then a close-up of the UL listing. It is mandated in NFPA 80 that a spring hinge, if it's to be used on a fire-rated application, must be labeled, meaning it has to bear visual evidence that is clear and obvious to anyone looking for it on the hinge. If you've got a spring hinge and it doesn't have language like this, and it's on a fire door, you technically do not have a fire door at all. So now let's scroll down and let's take a look at the extended description here. Okay, and we're going to zoom in a little bit. Full mortise. That's a reference to the ANSI standard that this is compliant with. UL listed for fire door applications. It is BHMA certified to grade 1, which means 1,000,000 cycles. These are non-handed. You can install them left hand or right hand. You can turn them over if you want, if you need to. Self-lubricated bearings, that's the LB part of the part number. Easily adjustable spring tension, we'll go over that, as well as the special template hole locations. The location of the screw holes makes it a 4361, which means it's for Castlegate compliant, Castlegate manufactured doors and frames. You can mix and match this with other hinges, provided that the leaf thickness is between this range. Made of steel. You've got a 5/8 radius on one side and a square corner on the other leaf. 96 thousandths, we talked about that. 8 holes. Machine and wood screws are included. And we'll get to the recommended size and door weight in a moment. The rod and the pin are available separately should you need those. We do occasionally have clients call and say, I've lost the pin, I need another one. Well, there it is. Just click on that and order that. Now, template, installation instructions, certifications, and hinge selection guide. Let's just tackle them one at a time. Template. This is a dimensional drawing showing the location of the holes. So if you're not sure if you have a Castlegate or you need a Castlegate hinge, easily compare your existing installation to all of these holes. And if it matches up, then you're in. You're good. 4x4, you're in good shape. Okay? That's what you're looking for. That's the template. This template's 18 years old. They don't change very often. The next document is the installation instructions, and that's going to talk about how to set the tension on the material. So when you receive the hinge, there will be no tension on the hinge at all because the tension pin is not installed. And simply go about hanging your door like you normally would. If you are mixing and matching this with other hinges that are non-spring hinges, place this at the middle and bottom and use it only at the top as a last position to install the spring hinge. So you will install this like any other hinge. Once you have it installed, and assuming that the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door, you're going to insert your tension rod and rotate that clockwise, and then insert the tension pin into one of the new newly revealed holes. You can go up to 3 holes of tension if your door goes to 180 degrees, or to 4 holes if you're stopping at about 90 degree. If you hear any creaking on that spring, you're going to want to back that off. I've had people call me and say, your spring hinge broke, it doesn't work. Okay, we just shipped it to you, what happened? Well, I installed it the first time and I opened the door and I heard a loud snap and that was it. And realizing what happened, I admittedly allowed the client to realize the problem, but I asked, how many holes of tension did you set? And the client actually said, about 12 is what he said. So obviously I had to refer the client to the installation instructions, and we went from there. Turns out the client needed not only a new hinge to replace the hinge that they broke, but they needed more spring hinges because they weren't applying an adequate quantity of spring hinges to get that door closed. Okay, and this here literally is a summary of what I just said, so I'll leave that up to you to review. If you install it with the hinge with the tension collar down, no problem, just rotate it counterclockwise to increase tension. You'll want to hang on to that tension rod because it's handy if you need to adjust tension. Like if this is an exterior door on a 3-flat, you will notice that it will take different tension in the winter versus the summer if you're in a northern climate. So being able to adjust that over time is pretty crucial. Let's move on to the certifications and hinge selection guide. This talks about how many hinges to use down here at the bottom. So if you have an 85-pound door or a 110-pound door, go with either 2 or 3 spring hinges. Okay. Now, if your door is fire rated, this right here is incredibly important. This is a summary of what is in NFPA 80. There's a chart or a table in NFPA 80 that dictates what you are to use on fire-rated doors. NFPA 80 is what's called the Life Safety Code. NFPA 101 is the Life Safety Code. NFPA 80 is basically fire doors and other opening protectives. Let's take a look and see what that title is. From our page, go to the manufacturer's link and then do a find function on your keyboard for ABS, which is our site. In NFPA 80 is called Standard for Fire Doors and Other Opening Protectives, NFPA 80. You will certainly want to be able to refer to that document if you deal with fire doors and the inclusion of hardware onto them. But NFPA 80 says this: you got to have at least 2 spring hinges. They must be labeled. They have to have the stamp. The door can't be bigger than 3070. That's the bottom line. That's what it says. If they're non-labeled doors, you know, it's fair game. You know, if you want spring hinges to work on larger doors, you're welcome to install them. I, of course, am a fan of hydraulic control over doors and not spring tension over them. I just feel that it's a more appropriate way to control a door because a spring hinge doesn't really control a door. So that governs fire rating right here in the center. This talks about its standard, where you'll use it, anywhere where you need something to self-close. And there you go. So there is a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page. But before we get to that, this video that's here it's quite an old video, and I probably do to create a new version of that. But you will likely encounter a situation where you have no idea if it's Castlegate or Peachtree or Johnson or any of a million other door manufacturers, meaning the location of the screws are going to be different. This video walks you through pointing you to the information, the resources to help you determine what spring hinge you need. Now, that link below this video here to the manufacturer's page will allow you to review not only all of the Bommer products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to their full product catalog, Let's click on that, let's open it, and then we'll do a find function on our keyboard for LB4361. And you're going to find the page eventually that shows all of these spring hinges. Okay? All of them. So if I was looking for a spring hinge, LB4361, on this second page, it's for a Castlegate. You can see that. There's also a 4362, so you'll need to dig into that. What you want to then do is take that part number, copy it, go back to our website, paste that into the search, and then look at the template for that and compare it. So this is a 4362. Nope, that's a 4361. Okay, I was looking for the wrong unit. Aha. So this template is clearly different because both corners are square. The locations for the holes may be the same. So what we've done is drawn your attention to first visually identify what yours looks like, get that part number, put it into the website, chase down the link to the template, and then check the template against what you have. And that is basically the summary of this video. But that catalog is really helpful because it will indeed allow you to, forgive me, find the potential other spring hinges. Bommer doesn't make every one available. There is one manufacturer that they don't make, and I have forgotten who that is, and I only bump into it about once every 2 years. I just don't recall, but there's one company that they don't make because there's just not enough demand for it at all. This catalog is comprehensive when it comes to all things spring hinges, so suffice it to say, the one I had mentioned earlier, the 3029, if you've ever seen a Bommer spring hinge, it's probably this one. Let's move back to the camera view and move towards wrapping up this video. Let's show you how to set that tension. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You can install it, you know, you're going to need to install it this way or this way, one way or the other. If I was to guess, I would say that they have a radiused corner on the jamb and a square corner on the door. And I only say that because that's how I've seen it. That would be my guess. Now, very simple and straightforward. As I said earlier, for every order you place, you're going to get a tension rod. For every hinge you order, you'll get a tension pin. This client ordered 2 hinges, so he gets 2 pins. I'm just going to let that poke out of there a little bit. Door is hung, hinge is attached, the door is hung in the closed position. Insert that into that tension collar, and you can see, even though it's black, you can see some holes there. Just get it stuck into one of those holes and turn it clockwise. And as you do so, you will reveal a new additional hole, and it's into one of those into one new additional hole that you'll then drop the tension pin, and you'll continue to work that over 3 or 4 times maximum until you are satisfied with the operation. A note about the tension pins. It has been said in the past that you could use anything like a 4-penny finish nail for a tension pin. However, that's not the way that this was engineered. And what I mean by that is if I were to take this tension pin and run that across my skin, I'm not harming myself. I wouldn't dare do that with a 4-penny finish nail that I've taken end cutters and snipped and stuck it into the hinge. There are actual cases where people have hurt themselves on non-original tension pins. There have been at least 2 and maybe 3 instances in my career, about once a decade, that someone calls me and asks me for my opinion. Let me back that up. About once a decade, an attorney calls me and asks me for my expert opinion on the use of non-original tension pins. And also you'll notice on tension pins from Bommer is that they are chamfered around, plus when they're installed they don't project. There was a client who, I'll spare you the details, but a child hurt themselves. Not insignificantly. They had stuck a nail and it was sticking out substantially. So be mindful. If you're using this anywhere, use the original equipment. Something so obtuse as a lawsuit for a non-original tension pin, that has happened. And it may, for your application, it may not matter, but just making that information available to you. So that's how you set the tension on this. And like I said, you might need to adjust it as the seasons change. When you've got all the doors and windows buttoned up in the winter, you're going to need more tension. Now, I had said earlier, I'm not a fan of spring hinges. I'm not. I don't think that they're the first choice ever, but they are people's first choice because of cost, I find. You got to put hinges on your door no matter what, so might as well get a 2-for-1. The issue, though, is that a spring hinge just stores energy and then releases it. There's no way to control that. There's no dampening of the release of the energy like there is in a surface closer that has a giant spring in it, so that when you open the door, it compresses the spring, and then as you let the door go, that spring wants to do like this, move very quickly, open, but the hydraulic fluid inside of there controls that rate. You don't have that sort of control on a spring hinge. You'll get doors that you have to turn the tension up so high that they slam, or they need to just move through inertia enough to get to the closed and hopefully latched position. In many instances, that's not going to work in a fire-rated application. When a fire door assembly inspector is there to test the integrity of the fire-rated opening, we're looking for opening that door 3 times to fully open. Depending on the code, it will say, I believe, either fully open to 90 degrees or to its maximum opening. And it has to close and latch 3 times, and every time the inspector is to push or pull on the door to make sure it's latched. And if your spring hinge isn't doing that reliably, again, you don't have a spring hinge. But you see them. Stairwells and condos, obviously hotels use them all the time. And those hotel doors, they really rip closed, making them certainly not handicap compliant because they don't close slow enough to be compliant with A117, the usability and facilities code for handicap compliance. So spring hinges are good, okay in some instances, but in general you're not going to see spring hinges used where you have to have control over the opening. I liken them to a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they can pull a lot of weight, and that's the analogy I use to just adding more spring hinges. You have more potential and possibly more torque to close the door, but that doesn't mean it's going to necessarily operate correctly. So word to the wise. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, and right above it says Made in USA. That's a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer, this is their LB4361 and a 400 in a 601. And sorry, one more thing about the 601. There's probably 20 finishes they can do this in. Your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, your satin, your polished, your oil rub bronze, bright black japanned, zinc, silvery zinc dichromate, prime coat. So lots of different options. If a finish can be done on steel, Bommer can do it. I've been to their plating plant, and I can attest to the 3 dozen or so finishes that they can do in-house on different base materials. Any questions on the LB4361 400 601 or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.